Hi everyone, it's Cathy from CathyZielske.com and welcome to another installment of Heck Yeah Hybrid, the video series wherein I show you how to take digital elements and combine them with the best of what traditional craft supplies have to offer. The goal? To create something cool and possibly meaningful that bridges the digital and traditional worlds of craftiness. In today's video, I'll be making a cut file out of a digital template and showing you how to take metal dies you already have and design photos and journal blocks to fit. Then we'll tie it all together on a final scrapbook page. Let's get started. Today I'm working in Photoshop Creative Cloud, but I am going to show you how to do the same process in Photoshop Elements. Just for those of you who have it, I've got you covered. What I want to do is I want to isolate something and turn it into a cut file. Now this is a new template from the CZ Design Digitals collection. This is layered template number 160. And I love this circle background. And I'm going to come over here in the layers palette. There's two layers. There's one is the outline and there's one the background, right? The file that I want to work with today is the circle pattern outline. I want to turn this into a PNG so that I can bring it into my Silhouette Studio software and make a cut file. So what you're going to want to do is you come over to the layer, circle pattern outline, and you're going to right click or you're going to control click. And you've got this great option called Quick Export as PNG. Now let go, and it's going to give you the option. It's literally going to name it, whatever that layer is. I think that is a very slick thing. You don't have to worry about naming it. And I'm just going to hit save. Now, if I go Command or Control O to open, I'm going to bring open that outline, open it up, and you will see it has just brought the cut file image, PNG image, if you will, that I'm going to use, and I'm going to change to black right now. So I'm going to go Edit, Fill, and under Contents, black. Boom, done. It's on a checkerboard background, which means it's transparent. I want it to be black because it'll just be easier to trace. So I'm going to hit save, beautiful, and close. Now, if you are using Photoshop Elements, let's pop down here and I'm going to pull up this. Here's the same template. And here's what I would like you to do if you're in this program. Click on Circle Pattern Outlines again, right click or control click, go to Duplicate Layer. And what you're going to do is you're going to come down here to Document and you're going to hit New. And you're just going to call it Circle Pattern Outlines or whatever you want to call it. Click OK. And now it's isolated. It's in its own document. And again, you can go to Edit, Fill Layer. You can choose black. Another thing to remember, just in case in either Photoshop Elements or full Creative Cloud Photoshop, make sure you have Preserve Transparency on or it will fill the whole thing with color. Click OK, and now you can save this file, Save As, and here's the critical part, well, PNG. You're going to save it as a PNG. I am not going to save this because I don't want it to overwrite the one that I did, but that's how you're going to do it in Photoshop Elements. So we're going to go ahead now. I'm just going to quit Photoshop Elements. Don't save. Thank you. And for now, I am done with this template. I will come back to it later, but the next step is to design some content that will be the same size as metal wafer thin dies that I already own. I have a set of rectangle stitched dies from Lawn Fawn. Actually, I have a couple sets, and I am newly obsessed with these dies because I've never used them before and only recently discovered the magic of manual die cutting. And so I wanted to use these on my scrapbook page. Now, I have two that I'm using, the 4.5 by 3.25 size and the 2.25 by 1.25 size. The larger one is going to serve as the mat for my photo, and the smaller one is going to be used for my journaling. So I need to create some things to print out that match those sizes, and here's how I'm going to go about doing that. I'm going to start out by making a new document, Command or Control N. And I am going to make a custom size here. Now, I'm going to have this be portrait orientation. So it's going to go 3.25 inches wide, and we're going to go with 4.5 inches tall. 300 resolution, very important because that is print resolution. And actually under the contents, I'm just going to use white for my background because I'm going to be dropping color in there to make a layer mask. So I'm going to hit create. Now what I've got here is the size of my actual die. So I want to turn on my visible grid. This is one of my favorite tools in Photoshop, both programs. If you hit your Command key or Control key and the apostrophe, you are going to see a grid. This grid is magical because generally speaking, it just gives you a very quick way to make even margins, and even margins are what I need right now. So I'm going to get, let's see here, a rectangle tool because I want to make a layer mask. And I want to make a layer mask that will hold my photo, but that does not fill this entire space because that's the size of the die, and the die has a little stitching around it, and I want to preserve that. So right now I'm just going to click on, I'll just click on my green that I love. I'm going to come in 2 squares, click and drag, and the goal here is to have 2 squares all the way around. You see that? And I want to show you real quickly under my, where are my preferences? Come on now. Grids, guide, and slices. I have my grid on both Photoshop and Photoshop Elements set to 8 as the subdivision. It's just something I've designed with for years, and so if you want to have the same type of margin, that's what you're going to have. All right, so I've got this little guy, this rectangle. I'm going to actually try to get in here and lock him in better. All right, he looks pretty good. This is going to be the digital home for the photo that I'm going to use. So let's open that up. Command or Control O. Look, where are we now? Command or Control O to open. Thank you. And I'm going to pull up this photo of my daughter. This is a new photo. Oh, let's turn the grid off now because that's super annoying. I took this with my brand new iPhone 7 Plus, and I gotta say that portrait mode, holla, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And also, this is a ginormous photo, right? It's huge. But it's fine because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, there's so many ways, you guys know, to get a photo into a template, right? Or into another document. I'm just going to select all, Command or Control A, and I'm going to hit Command or Control C because I love my keystrokes. Come back in here and Command or Control V. I'm going to turn that grid off now. Of course, you can see the outline of how big that photo actually is. And I'm going to hold down my Shift key to size it down. Of course, you don't have to do this in Photoshop Elements, right? Because it just constrains it for you. But in full Photoshop, if you're sizing something up or down, you got to drop down your finger on that Shift key. Now, I'm going to go Command or Control 0 for full page view. I like to see what I'm doing. And I'm going to move her around a little bit. I'm going to kind of get her right over to the edge. And I'm just going to clip her into place. Command or Control G. Gosh, I can't remember. I'm in the wrong program. Let's see. Command G. Nope. Command Shift G. Command Option G. Most of the time I teach classes using Photoshop Elements, so I'm a little out there. Okay, now I have a perfectly sized photo that I can trim for this beautiful thing that I'm about to do. Here's what I'm about to do. I'm going to turn off the background, okay? And I am going to, stay with me here, I'm going to trim away all the sides. If I go to, let's see, I know it by heart in my mind, but let's go to Trim. And what I want to do is just get rid of everything that's transparent. So I'm going to click Boom. And now, if I send this to print, I'm going to show you here. Let's go Command P. I know it's getting a little complicated. I'm going to go to my picture mate. I have an Epson picture mate. Let's click the proper setting here. And I'm going to go into print settings because right now it doesn't remember what it used to do. I'm going to go to 4x6 borders. Okay, and I'm going to click save. And then I'm going to come down to a lovely thing called corner crop marks. The reason I'm doing this shows me my 4x6 print. And I like to do it with the crop marks because it just gives me an easy guide for printing. And so I'm going to show you how to do that obviously later in the video, but we're going to go ahead and print this and we have our photo ready to go. Now I need to make a document to hold my tiny little bit of journaling. So let's go Command or Control N for new document. And we are going, it's already set up because I had to test this out and made a few mistakes, but here we go. 2.5 inches wide, and it's going to be on the landscape mode by 1.25 tall. That's the size of the actual die. Again, 300 resolution, white background, totally good to go. Here's the space. Now I'm going to turn my grid on, Command or Control apostrophe, because I want to make sure that I allow for where that stitching is. So I'm going to actually grab some journaling template placeholder stuff from my template. And most of my templates do come with placeholder journaling with a free font, and you can change it and customize it. So I'm just going to click on this, hold it down. I'm going to drag it up to the tab, drag down and release, and it will copy right inside. The reason I'm doing it that way is because if I were to go here and just do a right click and duplicate layer, it would duplicate it in the exact space. And then what that means is if I zoom out here, it would like be down here. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't able to see it. Anyway, long story short, I'm going to go ahead and add my journaling, and then we'll put it in a new document. Okay, I did a little futzing with the leading, and I changed the font to Avenir. My goal was to preserve this 2-grid frame around the entire space. Now what I'm going to do is create some duplicates of this and have a printing, what I call a printing doc. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unlock the background. It doesn't really matter, but what we're going to do is we are going to create a new document, Command or Control N, and I'm going to make this a letter size doc, just standard 8.5 by 11, 300 resolution, white background. Perfect. Let's take that grid off. And now I'm going to come back to my journal snippet, and here is where I can just right click on the text block and go to duplicate layer. I can put it in that untitled document, click OK. Now I'm going to come here. I know that this is going to work with the die cuts, so I'm going to make a few copies because I tend to mess up sometimes when I'm die cutting. So I'm just going to click on this and hold down either my Option key on a Mac or an Alt key on the PC. Hold down my Shift key too to keep it straight, and just make a few copies. This way, I'm going to have them both selected, and I'm going to do it again. This way I have a few, so if I mess up, you know what the heck, you're sending it to print anyway. Don't be stingy, right? Now I'm going to save this, and I'm just going to call it Journal Print in case my computer crashes, and I'm going to print these out, and those will also be die cut for my page. The last digital component we're going to move on to is creating our cut file. To create my cut file, I am working today using the Silhouette Studio software. I have a Silhouette Cameo. It's the only cut file machine I've ever had. I am not an expert on this particular machine. In fact, a colleague of mine is an expert. Her name, she is the Qui-Gon Jinn, the Obi-Wan, Carrie Bradford, carriebradford.com. That's where you want to learn about the Silhouette, but I'm going to show you what I know how to do, and that is I'm going to make a cut file. So I'm going to go Command or Control O. Let's go here. I usually just go up here and go O, and I'm going to find in my, let's go to YouTube channel, Heck Yeah Hybrid. Here we go. The Circle Patterns Outline. Remember that lovely bad boy that we saved earlier, the PNG file? Well, I'm going to click Open. Now, a lot of times I keep my Cameo set up to just be at 8.5 by 11 because I mostly have 8.5 by 11 paper. And this is designed to work on an 8.5 by 11 design, but you could increase the size of this if you wanted to, no problem. You know, you can size it up, size it down, whatever you need to do. But what I'm going to do is trace this. So I've got this selected over here. I'm going to come up here to the Open the Trace window. And I'm going to click on Select Trace Area. I'm just going to go, there we go. And it does a pretty good job. I always just click, make sure high pass filter is up, and I just push it all the way up just because then I know it's going to give me a really nice trace. And then I go up to the top one and click Trace. Beautiful, fantastic. Now I can click on the black graphic and delete. And I now have this fantastic cut file that came from a digital template. Again, the idea that you can take elements from digital templates and do other things with them in the real world, It's exciting to me. So our cut file is ready, and I will begin to assemble all of the pieces, and when I fade back in, we will be making a layout. So I've got my cut file here, and I went through with my X-Acto knife and just kind of popped everything out that didn't quite come out. And there's always, for me, when I use my silhouette, a few little tags of paper here and there. So I just went in and cleaned it up. I probably could have used a higher setting on my blade, but I tend to keep it the same all the time. So just went ahead and got everything out so that this lovely cut file would be ready to be used as part of my background. And now it's time to create my background. I've got this really sweet set of pattern paper from Doodlebug, these petite prints, and this is from the Dragon Tail set. I am a huge fan of petite prints, and I think Doodlebug just does it so well because you can always find a use for gingham. I think Stacy Julian taught me that years ago, but I digress. In cutting my background, you guys should know I don't really use a paper trimmer, except for now as a card maker I will, but I've always used a mat to trim. So I need to cut this down to 8.5 by 11. And I've always used cutting mats to, see those little lines that tells you where I need to cut. Now occasionally I'll cut a little crooked, but most of the time I just throw down a sheet of paper to make sure I'm cutting in the right place. Okay, there's the line. And I trim. This is just something that's a throwback to the days when I first started working as a graphic designer, when we still used rulers and X-Acto knives to cut things. I know, I'm a dinosaur, people. Anyway, background is prepared and I'm ready to move on. Now I'm going to take a sheet of this Nina Solar White smooth cardstock, and I'm just going to cut off what amounts to a 1/2 inch on the long side and a 1/2 inch on the short side. And I'm doing this just to create basically an inner mat upon which I'm going to build the rest of the page. So again, I just use my paper, or I use my cutting mat here because it might seem like it's slow for me, like, wouldn't a paper trimmer be faster? No, this is actually easier for me. A paper trimmer would be a big old hot mess. So cutting that off, and now I've got another piece ready for the page. And there we go. Maybe it's a little off, but you know what? It's gonna work. It's gonna work just fine. Remember those crop marks that we put on our photo? Ah, there they are. The way I use crop marks with a ruler, I line them up and I cut without cutting all the way through the paper. You can also do this on a paper trimmer. You just need to line up the crop marks and pop your blade in, but don't drag all the way through the paper. Does that make sense? That way you retain all cutting guides and you don't cut them off. But this is a way I love to trim out my photos because then I know they're going to be perfectly straight as long as I line everything up the way I should. And so there we go. Photo is trimmed and ready to move on. And now I've got the printouts that I made, those multiples. I took one set off because I realized I could use the bottom piece of the paper. And again, this is that Nina Solar White. I really am hooked on this paper. It's so white, it's so smooth, and it's so substantial. I'm using the 80-pound here. And I'm going to go ahead and cut it down the middle because I want it to be able to fit in the Big Shot platform. So all I'm going to do is just make sure everything lines up. And I can put it right over, position it exactly in the center. And the reason I can do this, of course, is because I set it up in Photoshop to be the proper size. So now I'm just going to tape it down, keep it in place, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. And it's going to be fantastic because I'm going to get it right on the first time, I think. Well, I actually know that I got it right the first time because I am recording this as a voiceover, but I put it on the platform, cranked it through, and was able to trim it out. And again, the beautiful thing is I knew the size by making a Photoshop document be the same size as my journal target. So here we go. Prints out, and now it's ready for my layout. And now I'm going to use the leftover cardstock to cut out the larger rectangle, the 4.5 by 3 1/4, because that's going to be the mat for my photo. So I was glad that I remembered to save cardstock because, yeah, the Nina cardstock is awesome, but it's not cheap. So always economize where you can. So I'm going to pop this out, get my big shot out of the way. And now I can grab my photo and bring it in, and you will see that it is a perfect fit. And again, having that margin set up allowed me to plan it to fit. Now it's time to glue down my die cut onto the background. I adhered a bunch of the Zig glue from my Zig pen because I think it's a good paper to paper type of adhesive. And I just kind of loosely put it all on the back. It didn't take very long at all. And once I got it positioned, I placed it down. And again, I really love the white on white because it just gives this sort of subtle texture that's not overwhelming. So you know something's going on, but it's not in your face. So I just take a piece of scrap cardstock, just kind of burnish it over a little bit so I don't get glue all over my hands. And there we go. We have the delicate die cut on the background, giving that great texture. Of course, it's time for the big roll of foam tape. Yes, I bought a giant roll of foam tape. And if you've watched any of my card making videos, you'll see that I use foam tape. But I have been using foam tape or other dimensional adhesive in my scrapbooking for years. I think because most of my pages are so simple, they really benefit from having a little bit of height dimension on elements. So I love to pop up my photos. I love to pop up journaling. And I love to pop up just simple elements. Of course, not too popped up, right? But so I'm also very new at tearing. I saw some people on YouTube tearing this tape, and I got to tell you, I think I'm a scissors girl. But anyway, photo is now popped up. And now I'm also going to put a little bit of the foam tape on one side of my little journal panel because I'm going to glue the other side right onto the photo. So simple, getting it in place and getting it ready for the assembly of the page. And now I'm going to go ahead and start to build the page. I wanted to have the photo sort of split between some of the circles. I couldn't decide if I wanted to go higher or lower. I settled on bringing it down a little bit and then just kind of wanted to position to make sure I knew where everything went. A lot of times when I'm preparing to assemble everything, most of the time I follow the plan that I had laid out in my head, but sometimes I change my mind. And this was an instance where I thought, well, let's plug in some extras. Now these pieces that you see, I took a piece of pattern paper from Doodlebug from a smaller pattern paper set, from a 6x6 set. And I ran that through the silhouette just to give me the negative spaces of this cut file, because that would give me something that I could pop in just a little color, not too much, but I think it's kind of a cool thing to play with negative spaces and to pick up that pattern from the background in these little circles, because the background pattern is the bigger pattern and this pattern paper pad is about 50% size. So I just thought that was kind of cool. And basically took me a while to figure out, wait a minute, which one goes which. So just 3. Why 3? Well, I like to repeat things in 3s because it's a principle known as the rule of thirds. It's a visually pleasing way to add synergy to your page and leads the eye around the page. So that's the main reason. And then I took these little tiny pieces, flipped them to the other side because the back side of this pattern is a linen. And I thought, hey, that would be kind of cute. And again, paired them with the 3 that I had already put in. Again, just a way to give a little bit of interest to the page, which is otherwise pretty simple. So that is how I proceeded with this part. And it was really coming together. So I was getting kind of excited because I'm like, yeah, this is actually going to work. Which again, sometimes I don't know until I get to the end. And there have been layouts that I've had to pretty much scrap and start over. For my page title, I decided to use one of my new discoveries, new for me, which is the Cole Alphabet die set from Lawn Fawn. Yes, it's not ironic that I'm using a Cole font on an Aiden page, but I digress. I love this set. Why? Well, it's just this very neutral, simple sans serif all cap face, and I've been using it on a handful of project and pages, and I just think it's great. So what I decided to do was take the reverse side of the petite prints from my 6x6 doodlebug pad in the same, it's the same color family, just flipped over, because I thought that would be kind of a cool look to, print out cut out a handful of these letters, glue them together, stack them to get that nice dimension. And that's another thing, guys, that's very new to me is stacked die cuts. Who knew you could create your own letters with dimension? Certainly not me. And so that's what I did for the initials that I'm using on her page. All right, we need to pick up the pace here. And really, I don't think I spend a ton of time on layouts. I think I generally can get them done in an hour or less. That doesn't mean you need to see the entire process. But once everything is ready to go, I adhere everything down. I've got the cute little initials, AZ. I was going to use her middle initial, and I had actually cut out that letter, but then I thought, I think I'm going to do something else there. So I just take off the tape, adhere everything. And my favorite adhesive has always been dot roller type adhesives, and especially the Kokio brand. And I just use it for the letters as well. I'm not going to pull out matte medium and deal with that. I'm just going to put some of my permanent dot adhesive, press it down really hard, and it's good to go. But now here is where I started to play with adding a final touch. I cut out a heart out of the same small pattern, but then I had these other doodlebug hearts, and I thought, you know what? Let's just see. So one of the things I do a lot, I love when they come on acetate like this, because I don't want to mess up, right? I don't want to screw up and, stick something down permanently. I thought, let's have a subtle bit of repetition. I'm going to grab one of the cute little gingham pattern hearts, and let's see if that's better. And I really wasn't sure because I loved the neutral of the blue, but as soon as I put it down, well, I tried to put it down in place, and it's still on the plastic so I can move it around and see if I like it. I was like, yep. It's just, sometimes it's just a little touch that makes a difference between a good layout and one that's like, oh, that's kind of cute. I pulled out some other doodlebug things and stuck them aside. I was going to use some sprinkles, but instead I thought I'm going to use a heart. So I grabbed my this little EK Success powder tool thing that takes the sticky off because it adds powder, because I didn't want this to inadvertently get pressed down somehow and stick. And I cut just a little tiny piece of dimensional tape here, foam tape, stuck it on the back because I still wanted to get that little lift between her initials. So yeah, I think it turned out to be a really good move to add a pop of color to this page. It needed it. I do like simple. I don't like things to be in your face, but I like a little element of surprise. And that right there, my friends, my crafty friends, that is exactly what I like to do on my scrapbook pages to add something. Now, centering things, I'm like, do I want to use this tool? I use this tool a lot, and I couldn't make it work today. I use it to hover so I can really see what I'm doing, and then it just fell off, and yeah. Long story short is, if you want to get something centered and lined up on your page, just stand up and stand over your page and stare down. I can sit down to make cards, but I cannot sit down to scrapbooks. So that's the hot tip of the day. And there you go. The page is finished. Almost finished. Come on, Kath, do it. Do it. Press it. And we are out. Hey, that was only 30 minutes. Tutorials, man, I tell ya. And that is the finished page. I'm really happy with how it turned. I can't even speak. It's been too long of a tutorial. Suffice to say, thanks for hanging with me. I love this page. I hope you liked it too. Thank you so much for watching today. Please subscribe to my channel and check out more videos in the center. To see more from me, visit my website today. Thanks everyone, and have a great day.